medieval period, North India. After the death of Harshvardhana, North India broke up into several small regional kingdoms. There started internal conflicts among kingdoms to emerge as the supreme power. Many of these kingdoms were ruled by Rajput chiefs. Historians and scholars differ about the origin of Rajputs. Most scholars agree that they were Kshatriyas. The Rajputs themselves say that they are Suryavanshi, belonging to the sun's family, or Chandravanshi, belonging to the moon's family. The most acceptable theory is that Rajputs are the descendants of foreign tribes like the Hunas, Sakas, Kushanas, Gujjars, etc. As times passed, these tribes of foreign descent got assimilated into Hindu society. After the decline of Harsha's empire, the Pratyahara Dynasty came to prominence in North India. The Pratyaharas were engaged in tripartite struggle with Palas and Rashtrakutas. From the 8th to 10th centuries, they became great rivals as they fought to control northern India with its capital at Kannauj. The conquest of Kannauj meant control of rich resources of the upper Ganga valley, trade and agriculture. This tripartite struggle weakened all the three. Pratyaharas declined after they were defeated by Mahmoud of Ghazni in 1018 CE. The most important Rajput kingdoms that rose on the ruins of Pratyahara kingdoms were the Chandelas of Bundelkhand, the Solankis of Gujarat, the Parmars of Malwa, and the Chauhans of Delhi and Ajmer. Peninsular India. Like North India, Peninsular India also had many kingdoms which were constantly fighting among themselves. In the 8th century, in the northwest Deccan, the Rashtrakutas of Malkhed came in prominence under Danti Durga by overthrowing the ruling Chalukyas of Vatapi. During this time, the Pallavas of Kanchipuram ruled the southeast Deccan, whereas the kingdoms of the Cholas of Tanjavur, the Pandyas of Madurai, and the Cheras of Kerala lay further south. In the tripartite struggle, the Rashtrakutas competed with the Palas and the Pratyaharas of North India. Let us understand the rise of these three dynasties briefly. The Palas. The name Pala means the guardian and was used as a suffix to the names of all the Pala monarchs. The Pala dynasty was founded by Gopala in 750 CE. He was the first independent Buddhist king of Bengal who came to power through democratic elections. He consolidated his position by extending his control over entire Bengal. He was succeeded by Dharampala, who made Palas a dominant power in North India. Some Tibetan accounts tell us that Palas were patrons of Buddhism. Dharampala also founded the famous Vikramshila University in Bihar. The Pratyaharas. The Pratyahara dynasty was founded by Nagabhatta I in 725 CE in the region of Rajasthan and Gujarat. Pratyaharas had a long lineage of powerful rulers like Vatsraja and Bhoja. Raja Bhoja established the largest empire in northern India with Kannauj as its capital. He issued silver coins with the mark of Varaha, an incarnation of Vishnu. The Pratyaharas were patrons of art and architecture. They built magnificent buildings and temples at Kannauj. Raja Bhoja wrote many books on varied subjects like medicine, astronomy, grammar, religion and architecture. The powerful army of Pratyaharas kept Arabs in check and in a way saved northern India from foreign invaders. Pratyaharas were destroyed by the attacks of Mahmoud of Ghazni. After the decline of Pratyaharas, many smaller kingdoms came up. Prominent among them were the Chandelas of Bundelkhand and the Sisodias of Mewar. Rashtrakutas. The Rashtrakutas dominated the Maharashtra region between 8th and 10th century CE. They came to power after the fall of Chalukyas of Badami in the Deccan. The emergence of Rashtrakutas heralded a new era in the history of medieval India. It was the Rashtrakutas who first forged north to the Gangetic plains and successfully contested their might against the Palas of Bengal and the Pratyaharas of Gujarat. Dravidian-style architecture reached its pinnacle, the finest example of which are seen in Ellora and Elephanta caves in Maharashtra and Kashi Vishwanath Temple in Karnataka. All these temples now are UNESCO's World Heritage Sites. Rashtrakutas inherited the cultural traditions of Karnataka, spoke Kannada as their mother tongue, and almost all their inscriptions are in Kannada. Amogh Varsha, who was the successor of famous Rashtrakuta king Govinda III, was a great patron of literature and the author of Kavi Rajmarga, which is one of the earliest Kannada work in poetry. The 9th century saw the rise of some of the great Kannada poets like Sri Vijaya Ponna and Adikavi Pampa. The Rashtrakuta contribution to art and architecture is reflected in the magnificent rock-cut shrines of Ellora and Elephanta. The Tripartite Struggle. The ancient period witnessed a continuous struggle for almost 200 years among the Palas, the Pratyaharas, and the Rashtrakutas for the control of Kannauj from 780 CE to 910 CE. This struggle was known as Tripartite Struggle. Kannauj was an important and prosperous city because of its strategic location. The control over Kannauj meant the control over the whole of Gangetic Valley. Moreover, the region was very fertile and situated on an important trade route. Dharampala, the famous Pala ruler, ruled Kannauj, but he was defeated by the Pratyahara ruler Vatsraja, who himself was defeated by the famous Rashtrakuta king Dhruva. King Bhoja, the Pratyahara ruler, later defeated Vatsraja and regained Kannauj. Pratyaharas were again defeated by Rashtrakutas. This constant struggle between the three kingdoms drained their resources and exhausted them. This was the main reason for their decline. Administration. In medieval period, the king's position was the most powerful as he was the head of the administration as well as the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. His office was hereditary and he was generally succeeded by his eldest son. But over the period of time, the king's position weakened. Taxes on land, trade and crafts were the main sources of revenue of the medieval rulers. This revenue met the expenses of royal households, wars, administration, and on construction of amenities for public welfare. The burden of taxation fell heavily on peasants, small artisans and craftsmen. To win the loyalty of important officials and powerful Brahmins, rulers gave them land grants. Those who received such land grant became king's feudatories and were called Bhogpati. The land was given away in lieu of salary. A feudatory had to pay a part of the revenue collected to the king and had to provide military support during the war. Apart from Bhogpatis, many areas were ruled by defeated rajas called Samantas. When a ruler was defeated in the battle, his territories were returned to him, but he had to pay a fixed tribute and to attend the darbar regularly. Over the years, the Samantas who got large land grants grew very powerful. They often granted land to lesser feudatories. They also took lofty titles such as Mahasamanta or Mahamandaleshwar. The king became increasingly dependent on his feudatories. During the course of time, the feudatories grew ambitious and some of them became independent when the king's powers declined. In all the North Indian kingdom, the lowest unit of administration was the village government. The villages had committees to look after schools, roads, temples, water tanks and wells. They worked in cooperation with village headman and also helped in settling disputes over land and cattle. The practice of forming trade guilds continued and the individual members of the guild had to obey all its rules. After some time, some of these shrenis emerged as subcastes or jatis. From the inscriptions of this period, we find the existence of the guilds of potters, weavers and artisans. Mahmoud of Ghazni. Mahmoud of Ghazni ascended the throne in 997 CE and had an extensive empire which included modern days Afghanistan, most of the modern Iran, parts of Pakistan and northern India. In 1025 CE, his armies marched from Ghazni and attacked the holy city of Somnath in Gujarat. The temple attracted him because of its fabulous wealth. According to historians, his booty exceeded 20,000 dinars. In the beginning, Mahmud of Ghazni became the ruler of Ghazni in 997 CE. He was interested in building a large empire in Central Asia. Between 1000 CE and 1025 CE, he attacked places such as Punjab, Mathura, Kannauj, Peshawar, and Multan. He was fascinated by the idols of pure gold and silver found in Indian temples. The Somnath temple was attacked 17 times by Mahmud. He also plundered several temple towns, as these were depositories of wealth, golden idols, and jewelry. Mahmud was one of the greatest conquerors of the medieval period. His attacks devastated northern India and left it in a weak state. He carried away not only immense wealth, but also many skilled artists and learned men. The famous scholars Al-Biruni and Firdausi lived in his court. Firdausi wrote Shahnama, The biography of Mahmoud al-Biruni wrote Tehkeek-e-Hind, in which he wrote about his thoughts and ideas about Indian people extensively. After Mahmud's death, his successors showed no interest in India. However, many Muslim leaders and religious saints, called Sufis, settled down in India. Mohammed Ghori, another important Muslim ruler who made his influence felt in India, was Mohammed Ghori. He ascended the throne of Ghazni in 1173 CE, made Punjab his base, and was ready for a campaign towards Delhi and Ganga Valley. Meanwhile, the famous Indian ruler Pratyahara Chauhan ascended the throne of Ajmer in 1178 CE and occupied Delhi. After defeating the Chandelas, then he turned his attention towards Punjab and Ganga Valley. So, both Pratyahara Chauhan and Mohammed Ghori wanted to control Punjab and Ganga Valley. This conflict led to two important battles in 1191 CE and 1192 CE at Turin near Bhatinda. Battles of Turin, a dispute over a fortress on the border of the two kingdoms, brought the armies of the two kingdoms into conflict. In the first battle of Turin in 1191 CE, Prithviraj defeated Mohammed Ghori and pardoned him, despite his generals asking him not to do so. Within a year, Mohammed Ghori made careful preparations and marched back with a large army. Prithviraj was able to muster the support of all the Rajas of northern India, including his father-in-law Raja Jaychand of Kannauj. The superior organization and faster movements of Turkish cavalry proved too much for him. Mohammed Ghori won the second battle of Turin and executed Prithviraj Chauhan. With this win, Mohammed Ghori became the master of Delhi area and eastern Rajasthan. Interestingly, he also defeated Jaychand of Kannauj later in 1194 CE. The second battle of Turin ushered in Muslim rule in northern India. Having to go back to Ghazni, he entrusted the further conquests to his generals Qutbuddin Aibak and Bakhtiyar Khalji. He was killed on his way back to Ghazni. He is often referred to as the founder of Turkish rule in India. Political developments in South India. There were several warring states in South India during medieval period, as was the case in northern India. Among different states, the Pallavas, the Rashtrakutas and the Cholas faced better than others. The Cholas. The Chola kingdom was the strongest empire in South India between 800 to 1200 CE. Their capital Thanjavur was a beautiful city of palaces and temples. In the 9th century, Vijayalaya, a Chola ruler, ruled over a small territory lying north of the Kaveri river. He conquered Thanjavur and made it his capital. He was succeeded as the founder of Chola Dynasty. His successors defeated the Pandyas of Madurai, the Pallavas of Kanchi, and the ruler of Sri Lanka. Cholas were defeated by Rashtrakutas in 949 CE. Rajaraja I. The golden era of Chola Empire started with the accession of Rajaraja I on the throne. He established control over large parts of Deccan and South India by defeating the Pandyas, the Chalukyas and the Cheras. He built a powerful navy and conquered northern Sri Lanka and established control over Lakshadweep and the Maldives. Rajaraja I was a great builder. He constructed the beautiful Brihadeshwara temple of Shiva at Thanjavur, also called the Rajarajeshwar temple. The art of making bronze statues flourished under Rajaraja I and his successors. Rajendra Chola I. Rajaraja I was succeeded by Rajendra Chola I. According to an inscription, his army defeated the Pala ruler of Bengal and reached the river Ganga. He proclaimed himself Gangaikonda, or the conqueror of Ganga, and named his capital Gangaikonda Cholapuram, a city of temples near Thanjavur. He built a strong navy to control overseas trade and commerce. The navy of Rajendra Chola I went to Southeast Asia and defeated the forces of the kingdom of Sri Vijaya. The Sri Vijaya Empire of Malaya, Java and Sumatra was powerful and controlled the sea routes from India to China. They did not allow the Chola ships to sail through the Straits of Malacca. This restored the Cholas' flourishing trade with Southeast Asia and southern China. In 13th century, The downfall of Chola kingdom was brought about by internal conflicts and frequent wars against neighboring kingdoms. Chola Administration. The Chola Empire was divided into provinces called mandalams, which in turn were divided into Valnadu and Nadu. The Valnadus were the subdivisions of Mandalam. They may be understood as modern-day Zilla Parishad. The Valnadu was in turn divided into Nadus, which can be compared as modern-day villages. The system of local self-government in the villages was an important characteristic of Chola administration. Princes were appointed as governors of Mandalam. The Chola kings were assisted by a council of efficient ministers and administrators. The kings built a good network of roads. Trade and commerce flourished. Kaveri Pattanam and Nagapattinam were the chief ports of the Cholas. Merchants came from Southeast Asia and China, and even Romans also carried out trade. The merchants carried glassware, brocades, sandalwood, perfumes, camphor, and precious stones. Chola Art and Architecture. Chola artists created and perfected bronze sculptures which were worshipped as living entities. Graceful elegance characterized the primarily religious bronze sculptures of the period. The most famous example is the Nataraja, or the dancing Shiva. Temples became not only the place of worship but also the center of entertainment. It was in the South Indian temples that Bharatnatyam dance began. Dancing girls, known as Devdasis, learned and performed in the temples. Exquisite temples like Brihadeshwara Temple at Thanjavur and Nataraja Temple at Chidambaram have been constructed during Chola period. Common people followed Hinduism. The Brahmins and the merchants were the most respected classes in the society. With Rajaraja I, the Chola culture and the Shiva religion permeated the whole of Ceylon or Sri Lanka. The two great philosophers of this period were Ramanuja and Madhava, who propagated different religious ideologies. Agrarian expansion. The Chola rulers granted land to royal officials, Brahmins, temples and other religious institutions. The tax-free land granted to Brahmins was known as Brahmadeva. It was looked after by a Sabha. The temples were said to be the largest landholders during the Chola period. Often, entire villages were given to temples. These were called Devdana villages. Land granted to joint institutions was called Palichanda. The practice of giving land grants brought the lands of several small peasants under the control of Brahmins and temples. The peasants whose lands were given to Brahmin temples were given poor quality lands in exchange. As a result, they became poorer and reduced to the status of landless laborers.